What's going on, guys? Stefan here with you, S&E's Garage. Today we're going to be in the shop with our LX 470 and we're going to be servicing the transmission. So the transmission that is in this truck is the Aisin A750F. This was used in pretty much all of Toyota and Lexus's SUVs from 2003, early 2000s, all the way until 2024 in the 5th Gen 4Runner. So if you have a V6 or a V8 Toyota SUV or even pickup truck with a 5-speed automatic, this is going to be the transmission that's in it. So this video is going to work for a wide spread of vehicles. I'll try to leave all of them in the video description below, but we're going to go ahead and take care of it today. This truck has about 154,000 miles on it, and I have no records of this ever being serviced. I'm by no means afraid of servicing it. I've serviced plenty of high mileage Toyotas equipped with WS trans fluid, and I've never had a problem. They usually come out still, you know, like a tint of dark red. WS fluid is very stout, and it's very good stuff. So I'm not worried about mileage. You can service these at any mileage, as long as they are operating properly before you service. If you're going to service them because you're starting to feel some shift concerns or drivability issues, service isn't usually going to help. But what we have here is we're going to be using, like I said, Toyota WS trans fluid. We have the O-ring for the strainer that we're going to be replacing. Part number for that is 90301-31014. We have a oil pan gasket or transmission pan gasket 35168-60010. And then we have our strainer 35330-60050. Like I said, we picked up about 5 quarts of WS. This is a quart that I had laying around, so we're going to use that one first. But we should only need 5 of these. What we are going to do once we get it up in the air, we're going to drain it and we're going to capture everything that we drained and measure it so we can put that in plus an additional half quart. So let's get it up in the air. Let's get our bearings here and we'll take it from there. All right, so let's get our bearings over here. This is going to be your transmission pan right here. That's going to be your drain plug. That's going to be your fluid adjustment plug. And then over here on the right side of the vehicle up there, right by that output shaft speed sensor, is going to be your fill plug. It is a 24 millimeter. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to get our shallow 24 millimeter socket. I have this specifically for Toyota transmissions. I'll leave one of those in the video description below. The first thing we are going to do is go ahead and pop the fill plug out. That way we are 100% sure that we're going to be able to fill this up. I do not want to drain it until I'm positive that I can fill it. So let's go ahead, pop that out, and then we'll go ahead and begin draining it. All right, now I've already gone ahead and cracked this loose with a 14 millimeter socket and ratchet. But like I said, this is our drain. And again, like I said, no record of this ever being done. The fluid's still got a little red tinge to it. And it by no means whatsoever smells burnt. So that is definitely a good sign here. And like I said, we are going to capture everything that we drain here just so we have an idea of what to put back in it. The service manual calls for right around 5 quarts, but we're gonna, verify that. So let's let this finish draining. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead with what looks to be a 12 millimeter here and remove this little plastic shield here from the drive shaft, and that should give us access to the rest of the bolts for the transmission pan. And now that this is slowing to a trickle, we are going to go ahead and remove all of the 10 millimeters that are surrounding the transmission pan by hand. You don't want to take these out with a gun. You risk snapping them in the transmission. That is a mistake that I have made before. So again, by hand, you're just going to go ahead and crack them all loose. And then you're going to leave 2 of these bolts in on either side of the transmission. That is going to enable you to loosen and remove the pan without dropping it and making an absolute mess. This one is going to be tight here. This is why I say by hand. You're gonna, if they're tight, you're gonna want to work them back and forth very slowly, and they should come out. Yep. Some of these are a little tight. It's one of those instances where if you did go ahead and do that with a gun, you'd put too much torque on them and snap them. So let me just go ahead, let's go around the rest of this pan, work these loose, and we'll show you where we're at when we're done. So unfortunately, we did have 2 casualties, even with being careful. We did have 2 break, and they broke pretty flush here, so we are gonna have to do some drilling. But we have all the bolts out now, and we have 2 of them still in very loosely. And like I said, now we can go ahead and break this pan loose. Like so. So now we can go ahead remove this bolt. And now there is one more on this side. And this pan is now ready to come down. And we're just going to drain the rest of the contents of it into our bucket here. All right, so we got our first hole here drilled and tapped. We got that to work. It's a 6mm by 1.0 thread. So what you're gonna see here is my second bolt that broke. What you're gonna see is I already went ahead and center punched it, and I'm just gonna start with the smallest bit that I have, and I'm gonna work my way up. And I'm going to stop when I get to a 13/64. That is the perfect size for the tap to then go in and cut the threads for us. So let me go ahead, drill this one out, and then we're going to go ahead and pull this strainer. I decided to leave the strainer on until we were done drilling, so if any metal got, you know, underneath it, we're taking it off anyway. So let's go ahead, drill that last broken bolt out, and then we will resume the normal service. Now what you're going to see here is the transmission pan, the inside of it at least, and what I want you to pay attention to here is this little pipe. That is the stand pipe that we are going to use later when we adjust the fluid level. Now the first thing you're going to do is take your old pan gasket and distort it. Now you're going to want to pay attention to your magnets. You pay attention to exactly where they are in the pan. I just snapped a quick picture of it before I removed them. So now we're going to go ahead and take them off. And what we're going to want to look for is we want to see what kind of debris is on here. These magnets do not look bad at all. A little bit of fuzz is normal. You just want to look in the bottom of the pan, make sure you don't have any large metal flakes, whether they are magnetic or brass. Could indicate different items wearing in the transmission. But an automatic transmission by design does shed material, so don't be alarmed if you see a little fuzz in there. But any big, large pieces, you might have something going on. So we're going to go ahead and remove these magnets. I'm going to clean them, and I'm going to bring this pan over to my parts washer over there, and we're going to get it nice and clean. And then we're going to come back over here and clean our mating surface here for the pan, and we're going to go ahead and remove the filter. And like I said earlier, we have already gone ahead, we drilled out our broken bolts and rethreaded the holes, so everything will be good there. We are now at a point that we can go ahead and remove the strainer. Now do be mindful when you pull this, a bunch of fluid's going to come out of the valve body, so be ready for it. It's held in with 4 10mm nuts, or rather bolts. And there is an O-ring that is up here that you are going to have to remove. Just make sure you don't leave it in the valve body, and then install the new filter, because you'll double O-ring it, and that's not a good thing. And the O-ring in this case actually stayed on the strainer, which is really nice. Let's go ahead and get the new strainer, get it installed. So here's our new strainer. Here's the new O-ring. You're just gonna take some trans fluid from the valve body here. It doesn't have to be a new trans fluid, doesn't really matter. And you're just gonna lubricate this O-ring before you slide it in. And then you're going to go ahead as straight as possible. And pop the strainer into place. You should feel a nice pop like that. That is going to tell you that the strainer has seated. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to torque these bolts down to 7 foot-pounds. Now, I am a trained ASE certified technician, and my elbow just happens to click right at 7 foot-pounds. So I'm going to trust the torque wrench in my elbow, but if you would like to torque them down, again, that spec is 7 foot-pounds. Now, I do believe that I wasted my time changing this strainer because I looked inside of it and it's literally a strainer. There's a little mesh filter in there. You could look right through, and that's it. So again, we're gonna go ahead and use the elbow torque wrench. Click, 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 and then give it one more quick click here. Click, 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 and click. Let's go over to the pan, show you what we got, and let's start getting it ready to put up. So what you're gonna see here is our nice clean pan with the nice clean magnets. And we're gonna take our nice new gasket here, and we're just going to figure out the orientation here to lay this basically over the pan where it goes. So that ain't right. This gotta go over here. You guys are literally right where I need to be to do this, but whatever. So this right here is the way that this is going to go up. So let's walk you again over to the trans and let's get this thing up. So before we put our pan up, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna take some emery cloth here. I just have some of this soaked in kerosene, so it's got a little bit of lubrication. But we're just gonna try to wipe some of the surface here where this new pan is going to be, or this new gasket here is going to be seated. Because we don't want any leaks. We definitely don't want any leaks. So we're just gonna clean this up. So what I like to do is I'll go ahead and I'll slip one of these bolts on one side through the pan and into the gasket. And that one bolt is basically going to be my pilot to go ahead and line everything up. And once I have that one started, I'm going to let the pan hang from it like so. I'm going to grab another one, come to the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now, just like we took them all off by hand, we're going to start them all again by hand. We do not want any of these cross-threaded. We don't want any more braking because we don't want to have to pull this all apart again to drill anything out after we've already gone ahead and prepped everything. That just would not be a enjoyable time. So let us go ahead. We're going to get these all started by hand, and then when we come back, we will torque them down with my elbow torque wrench, and I'll give you the torque spec. We got all of our bolts started. Luckily, we did a really good job when we drilled those two broken ones out, so everything lined up. And now we're going to go ahead and torque these down. Now, if you don't have a torque wrench, it's not super important, These do not get tightened that tight at all. The torque spec is 39 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. So you, by no means, you do not kill these. You snug it, and that's it. So we're gonna just go basically in a crisscross pattern here, and we're gonna start snugging our pan down. Again, do not by any means murder these. You're going to snug them, and that's it. So we just went ahead and measured what we got out of this. We got a hair over 4.5 quarts, so almost 5 quarts. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna pump 5 quarts into this trans. But we are going to be using, I'll leave one in the video description below, is just one of these generic Amazon fluid pumps. What's nice about these is they thread right into your WS bottle. Makes it nice and easy. I'm not gonna bore you. You don't have to watch me pump this in. Just know we're gonna put 5 of them in, and then we'll go ahead and begin the fluid adjustment procedure. So we went ahead, again, we put 5 quarts in this thing. We went ahead and we put our fill plug back in because we filled it more than what we drained out, so we know we're not gonna have to add any more. And then we just went ahead and cracked this plug loose. I wanted to make sure, you know, it would come loose. You are going to need a 5mm Allen key for that. You're not going to open that plug to adjust the fluid level until we have the engine running and the transmission temperature at a certain temperature. Basically, the way this works is they measure how much they want the fluid to expand, and then they have you pull the drain plug at a very specific temperature. On this vehicle, it ends up being between 115 and 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So what we are going to do is we're going to plug in our scan tool here. We're just going to use an umbilical cord. I'm going to run it from the car down to here, and we're going to monitor our transmission temperature. Now let's go ahead. We're going to lower the car down. We're going to start it up, get the scan tool going, and we're going to go ahead and start the engine, and we're going to move the shifter from park, reverse, neutral, and drive, and we're going to do that several times. What we want to do is get all the fluid through the transmission, through the valve body. We want to fill any voids in the transmission that are supposed to have fluid in it. That way, when we drain the excess, we're not draining too much because all the fluid will be in the correct spot. So let's go ahead, lower the car down, set up the scan tool, play with the Prindle a little bit, and we'll get adjusting. So here we are in the LX. Again, right now it's in park. We're going to go ahead and start it. Okay, we're going to turn the air conditioning off. We want all this stuff off. And we're going to take the shifter, foot on the brake. We're going to go reverse. Okay, we're going to go neutral. We're going to go drive. We're going to go 4, 3, 2, and low. And we're going to go ahead and continue to do this several times, ending in park. All right, guys, so what you see here is we have AT1 and AT2 graphed. One is at 83 and one is at 90. I'm gonna wait for them both to hit 115 degrees, and that should get us basically where we need to be to go ahead and do the adjustment procedure. So now it's basically a waiting game. We just have to wait for this transmission fluid here to come up to temperature. You'll see right now they're kind of starting to even themselves out. One's at 84, one's at 89. So as soon as they're both at 115, we'll go ahead, start recording again, and we'll do the adjustment procedure. Now, if for some reason you don't have a scan tool, there is a pedal dance you can do to go ahead and get this thing into a certain mode, and you'll basically look at the indicators on the cluster, the park, reverse, neutral, drive indicators. The drive will flash when you get in the window. I'll leave those instructions in the video right here. You can go ahead and put the car in that mode, and then you don't need a scan tool or anything. I personally, I don't like using a laser thermometer. I've been asked that question before. I don't think it's accurate because you're measuring the temperature of the metal pan rather than the fluid itself. You know, that thing can't get a good read on what's immersed in the fluid. So again, once we get to 115, we'll go ahead, we'll bring you over to the car, and we'll open the adjustment plug. So I have to say, this is probably the longest I've ever waited for a Toyota transmission to come up to temperature, and a part of that reason I think, is the fact that this transmission does not have a transmission cooler, in the sense that it is cooled by a sandwich plate cooler like a lot of the newer Toyotas are. They call it an ATF warmer, as a matter of fact. This truck doesn't have one of them, so we are literally just relying on the transmission itself to generate heat rather than being heated by the engine coolant. Because if we look here, our coolant temperature is at 186 degrees. We're only sitting at 109 with the transmission temp. So we're literally just waiting for the torque converter to get this thing hot, and at idle it's just going to take a while. So again, patiently waiting here. We threw some more wood on the fire because we had to open the door with the truck running, obviously, but we're only about 5 degrees away. So sit tight, stay tuned, and we'll open that plug up in a second. All right, we are finally at 115 degrees. So let's go ahead and open this up, and we're gonna let it drain until it slows to a trickle. Now, one thing I want to mention is, like I said, I believe this is the first time this transmission has ever been serviced. So what we are going to do is we're going to do another one of these the next time I change the engine oil, but we're only going to do a drain and fill. We're not going to be dropping the pan again. We're just going to dump the fluid out of the pan, fill it back up, and we'll probably do that 2 or 3 times until this fluid is bright red. You can see it's still a little dark, but it's nothing crazy. So again, I'm gonna call that a trickle. That looks pretty good to me. So let's go ahead, put this bolt back in, tighten it down. And this job is complete. All right, guys, and all we're gonna do now is go ahead and take our GX here for a ride, see how it shifts, and hopefully you guys do the same and enjoy your nice new and improved shift quality and feel. So if this video helped you replace the transmission fluid and filter in your Toyota or Lexus equipped with the A750F or E, please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you all next time.